Want to level up your leadership? Welcome to The Boss Coach.
Hey boss, how's business? Patrick got me talking in metrics. Hey boss, how's business? I'm the boss coach of my own moves. Hey boss.
Hey, I've been playing with the AI music app a lot lately. I'm actually putting together a collection of my own AI generated music. And some of it's pretty good. Some of it. A couple of them. Okay, it's not good. Well, hey boss, how's business? Hey, are your teams healthy right now? There's a lot of illness going around and man, people are sick right and left. On my 2 teams, I actually have 3 people getting surgeries this month, and that's not even counting the regular old illnesses. You can't take the illness away from people, but you can at least send them something. So give them a get well gift. It'll at least make them feel better. Well, thanks for clicking and listening. My name is Patrick McGranahan, and welcome back to The Boss Coach. If this episode was shared with you by a very thoughtful friend or you're new, check out the podcast trailer, please. That's episode 100. It gives you a little background on what The Boss Coach is all about, what I'm trying to do, what my journey is, what my purpose is, etc. And of course, check out all of season 1 for lots of helpful stuff, including basics on being a great leader. So, the title is Urgent. What does that mean? That gives you visions of like old interoffice memos with that stamped on it, urgent in red. Remember that? Actually, millennials and below probably won't remember this, but now it's just an email with a red exclamation point. But urgency has always been important in business. I think we can all agree with that. Not important enough if you ask me. When I started my external support team last year, at the end of it, when we were kind of summing everything up, one of the recruits asked, what are the skills that we need to be successful in this job? And I thought about it for a second. I realized it's really only 2 things. Number 1 is empathy. Now, we've talked about that a ton, of course. Empathy is everything. EQ, empathy, and caring for others. But number 2 is sort of the secret second thing, the pillar that makes you successful. And I said that was a sense of urgency. Empathy and a sense of urgency. Now, that's a bold statement, I know, but let me paint you a picture. Let's say you're in line at the grocery store. Although right now they're taking away most of the self-checks, so you're probably in line waiting for somebody. Turns out people were stealing things, so they had to go back to the regular old way. And let's say the checker is just having a nice conversation with the person up there, just chatting about whatever. But is that the place for it? This is where empathy and urgency are at odds. Now, it may seem like really good customer care to take the time to talk about their day and such to that immediate chatty customer, but it's also bad service and poor urgency to everybody else in line who's waiting. That's a good example of how urgency and empathy are sometimes at odds. Here's another example. I remember when I used to have to go to my cable company. Of course, I cut the cord years ago, but I used to have to go in and you'd go in and wait in line, you take a number, etc., and go to your little booth, get it taken care of and leave. You want to get in, get out as much as you could. At one point, they changed. And instead of standing at a booth, they made it a desk and a chair. And so when it was your turn, you went over and you sat down and had a conversation with the person. Now, this may sound like, oh, well, that's really sweet. That's good customer service. In reality, it is exactly in the face of urgency because it requires that you sit down, get comfortable, and have a little conversation with the person when really you just want to get in and get out. Maybe some people need that convo in their life. Most of us don't. So again, it's all about the balance. Now, we all agree that we like our needs as a customer to be treated with urgency. But what about as a leader? How do we foster a culture of urgency balanced with empathy?
Come on. Move it. Could you be any slower? And you've had your blinker on for the last 5 blocks.
Okay, from the jump, here's a confessional. I struggle with impatience. You may realize that. My leaders under me and above me both know this. In fact, my family knows this. It's kind of that operationalized OCD that we've talked about before. See, in my brain, caring and empathy means urgency. It means do it now. Don't make them wait. Making people wait is torturous. Well, just today, for example, we had ordered some furniture last weekend, and one piece, a couch, was to be delivered today. And I realized that I didn't get the email last night confirming when they would be delivering today. So I checked the receipt only to find that the person who helped us put in that it was to be picked up today, not delivered. So we had set up a delivery that isn't going to occur. That made me upset. So I called the customer service line and fortunately they were able to get things moved around to where it would still be delivered later today. I should be expecting it any minute actually. And I wouldn't have to wait any longer or go pick it up or anything. So they luckily got to a good resolution. Do I need this couch today? No, but inside, I feel like waiting is torturous. So what we'll be focusing on today is, and I spent a lot of time trying to perfect this sentence, we're focusing on setting realistic expectations for your teams for completing deliverables in an appropriately impressive amount of time without creating undue stress or discomfort. That's urgency in a nutshell. You know, in the example of my furniture, that customer service agent's leader had empowered him to reallocate resources and ship out today instead of telling me to wait to a future date. So it really is about not only being respectful of the client's request for urgency, but also just giving excellent customer service. Now, I don't think I need to sell you on the importance of urgency, right? We're going to ensure instead that we focus on doing basically 3 things. Number 1, distinguish true urgency from fake urgency. Number 2, level set what urgency looks like in your business unit. And 3, fostering a culture of urgency distinguished from immediacy. And part of that entails making so your reports can self-direct and create the urgency without you having to be the one pushing for it every time. All right, so number 1, we're going to distinguish real versus fake. So you know this one very well, right? You've heard lack of planning on your side does not equal urgency on mine. Well, as a leader, you've got to be the gatekeeper between the productive urgency and destructive, quote, false urgency, which leads to burnout and stress. Well, what's the difference? True urgency means that you're focused on important long-term goals characterized by purpose, strategic focus, and energy. Here's an example. So let's say you've got a really big client who just can't seem to log into their client portal to view their own account. Now, as a leader, you're going to prioritize this one because it is a large client who you want to make sure to impress, and not being able to log in means that they cannot right now access their information. That is an urgent situation. How about false urgency or an emergency? That's characterized by being reactive, chaotic, driven by fear, or constant firefighting, resulting in low morale and high turnover. Have you ever been asked to drop everything and run a bunch of reports for somebody? Now, what's the urgency in that? What's the need for it other than somebody asked for it right now and they didn't do the due diligence to determine how urgent it was? So therefore, stopping things that are probably business critical to run some reports for somebody who probably won't read them is an example of false urgency. And it begs the question, how do you push back on a fake emergency? So your boss calls out of the blue and they're panicked. Well, I would say you go through 3 steps. Number 1, don't match the energy. Be calm, but speak confidently. They need to hear that from you. You can't also match their chaos. Number 2, ask clarifying questions. Okay, well, that sounds great. Who needs this? And do they give an expectation of timing? What's the impact here? Recently, we got some new senior leadership, and a handful of squeaky wheels got in their ear with their own personal pet peeves, and it created a bunch of wild goose chases. And that was really impactful, and it hurt our productivity. And plus, the impact there was 1 person out of 600 in that business unit. So let's think of it in terms of scope. And the third thing you should do is ask this question. What should I deprioritize for this? That forces an assessment and interjects reality into the situation. You can probably sniff out a fake emergency from a mile away. You just need to guide them to that realization because they're still coming in hot. Once you've decided that it is urgent, then of course you devote your focus to it until it's complete. But you show your boss that their priorities are your priorities. But be the voice of reason. All right, number 2, what does urgency look like? Very important point here. You level set expectations with your teams what urgency is from the very beginning. Now, let me give you a couple of funny examples. You remember the movie Elf, right? Well, there's this really cool scene at the end where the dad, who's a book publisher, has his writers in the room and they're up against a big deadline. So he says, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get this all knocked out. We're going to get to writing. We're going to put our nose to the grindstone and get ready by tomorrow for the pitch. And the writers say, okay, got it. And then they sit down immediately and relax. And he goes, no, get up, go write. We're going to get this done. And he had to create that urgency because their intention was simply, all right, you've told us we're going to sit down and soak it in. Nope, now it's time to work. Another example is from the movie Big with Tom Hanks. You probably remember that one. In it, he gets his first job once he's in his grown-up body, and his coworker says, hey, slow down, you're making us look bad. So he had his own sense of urgency that didn't match the culture at the time in that office of taking things slow. That's a case where the urgency of the person didn't match the culture. They need to align. That's what's most important. So the way to kind of define what urgency looks like is to lead by example, first and foremost. That means you act decisively. You show that you can make decisions quickly and reduce unnecessary meetings. You want to model speed. If you want your team to be fast, you've got to respond quickly to emails, messages, requests very promptly. You want to act fast. So take the initiative on critical matters yourself. Even if it's not your direct job or your part of your description, you want to show what matters. Also, you want to be calm under fire. Real urgency is not about panicking, but focused and calm while acting quickly. The next way to define urgency is to create structure and focus. So you can use something called visual progress tracking, or maybe dashboards or graphs or charts, whatever, but you want to show the goals and your progress toward them rather than just a row of numbers. It has to be visual. You want to set clear short-term deadlines, break down large projects into smaller ones, make it faster, 1 to 2 week sprints maybe, so it's not a whole marathon. Give them mini deadlines. Also, prioritize ruthlessly. So use tools like there's something called the Eisenhower Matrix. There's others out there, but they can help your team focus focus on what is important and urgent. But setting the priorities is the job of the leader, so they know exactly what comes first and how urgent it is. How else do you as a leader show what urgency looks like? Set guardrails to avoid burnout, and that is a great way to balance urgency and empathy. You also want to acknowledge the pressure that they're under and ensure that the team feels supported and not pushed. And also, very important, fix the systems. Don't just panic. If tasks are always urgent, fix the underlying process rather than constantly running fire drills, which leads to burnout. Does this ring true, boss? So, to ensure urgency, you got to model it and then make sure that actions are greater than words every day. All right, number 3 is to foster a culture of urgency. So we figured out what's real versus fake. We know what urgency looks like. Now we're going to foster the culture. It's not just a one-time thing either, but it has to be part of your team's ethos, your DNA. Everything can't be immediate, because immediate means happening instantly without any delay. Urgent means requiring quick action soon, typically within 24 hours. It can't feel to them like everything's immediate, because if everything is a priority, you know how this goes, then nothing's a priority. Use immediacy sparingly. Use urgency liberally. Of the ways to foster this culture, the biggest, in my opinion, is by sharing the why. Get them on board by providing the context. Explain what's at stake here. Clearly communicate the impact of a task or project. Explain why it matters and what happens if it's not completed on time. Also, connect it to the mission. Link daily tasks to the broader company goals so the team understands the significance of their work. Prove that you gatekeep for them, so if you think it's urgent, it really is and they can trust you. I would also say that you should reinforce the culture of urgency by connecting it to personal values. Relate urgent tasks to what the team members care about, such as personal growth, positive customer impact, rather than just using fear-based tactics. I know you don't do that, boss, but some leaders do. Also, be specific. Eliminate vague terms. Set precise, clear, and challenging deadlines. Another great way is to eliminate waste. You remove redundant processes and paperwork that don't contribute directly to the goal. Nothing's worse than getting caught up in the small, annoying things, preventing you from adding the real value. Now, I also consulted the Enterprises Project on this topic, and they had a couple of good insights. One is your culture has to be results-oriented, not task-focused. What does that mean? Well, is your job selling widgets or to fill out the forms upon sale of the widget? Sometimes you lose focus on which one's real. You can get lost in the tasks, but focusing on selling more widgets brings out their ingenuity and urgency with ownership. Now, Enterprisers also shared a tough truth. You have to address disengaged employees. You know who they are, the ones with the lowest and slowest output. Determine if they can be improved and make a plan to get them literally up to speed. The obstacle to a culture of urgency might not be a what, but a who. Let's talk about SLAs. Do you know what SLAs are? Service level agreements. But that's how you clarify expectations too. And if your systems track performance versus SLA, that's even better. It should be measured objectively though, using defined expectations. But you want to beat them, not just meet them. Well, boss, that's urgency, and you can tell from my presentation style that I always bring to this podcast, I speak with urgency too. So first we determine real versus fake, then we define what urgency looks like, and then finally we learned how to foster a culture of urgency. That's how you balance empathy and urgency and get people to over-deliver on promises. Now, I've explained all the ways to create this super valuable culture of urgency. Sometimes you need the contrary to understand things. So let's look at a really bad example of a sense of urgency. Enjoy this.
Well, I was hoping you could run a play for us. We are in a really big hurry.
Sure. What's the plate?
29 T
Number.
29 THD03.
2 9
THD03.
T
HD03.
H
D03.
D
03.
0.
3.
Hey, Flash, want to hear a joke?
No!
Oh, it's funny because it's true, right? All right, boss, here's what you can do right now to level up your leadership. Let's make sure that your expectations of urgency are crystal clear. And to do that, revisit your SLAs, your service level agreements. If you don't have any, make them. But does anybody know what they are if you do have them? Make sure they're communicated and posted and that you're reporting against your performance to them. That's how you become an urgent boss. Well, thanks for your time. I'm Patrick McGranahan, the Boss Coach. Make sure to follow the Boss Coach if you're on Spotify. Other platforms just have you subscribe. Whatever it is, it's free and it means you get notice of new episodes. Also, thank you to my new subscribers. I'm getting a few of those, some international, and a special shout out to those who have been listening to me for the entire time, from the beginning, and you're listening to every single episode and sharing with others too. I really appreciate you. Now remember to like and leave comments. That's what the algorithm loves, apparently. How about you comment telling me what your no urgency nightmare was. You probably encountered some customer service where nobody was in very much of a hurry and that impacted you. So share that story. Keep sharing episodes, as I said, especially with your most impatient friends so they know that they are not alone. And I thank you for engaging in TikTok and Instagram. You've been having fun with Boss Cat and Boss Pug when they're not biting me or barking. They're pretty entertaining. Oh, and wait. It looks like my furniture is being delivered right now. So, hey, see you next time on The Boss Coach. Back to work, boss.
Thank you for joining us today for The Boss Coach, hosted by Patrick McGranahan. We'd also like to thank our associate producer, Hannah, and consulting contributor, Stephanie. Original music provided by Sono AI Studio. All statements and opinions by our host and guests are solely their own observations and may not reflect those of their contemporaries or employers. Please check out other episodes of The Boss Coach for more valuable opportunities to level up your leadership. Until next time, I am your announcer, Ava. Have a great day, and as always, lead with your heart.